Hi everyone, I'm Ani from Neptune AI. I'm at the AI Engineer World's Fair, and I have Alison here with me from Neo4j.
Hey everyone, how you doing, Ani?
I'm alright, how are you?
I am good. I am doing very well.
So could you share a little about your background and how you ended up in Neo4j?
Sure. So I've been a data scientist for over a decade, but my very first project when I started was a graph data science project where we were tracking idea contagion in a research group with Stanford that I was working with. And life took me other places, and I was just doing AI and healthcare and market research. And then one day, Neo4j calls and says, "Hey, would you be interested?" And I was like, "Wait a minute, I get to do graphs all the time? This is great." Honestly, 1 year for my birthday, my husband got me a copy of Matthew Jackson's Social and Economic Networks. And anybody else would be like, "Why are you buying me a textbook?" And then there's me, who's like, "Oh my God, this is so great." So the opportunity to work in graphs all the time, and more importantly, in developer relations, to be able to share what's possible with graph, doesn't get any better for me. Yeah.
That's really impressive. All right, so for those who don't know, tell us more about Neo4j. What is it? And any recent releases that you guys had?
Yeah, sure. So Neo4j is a graph database. So we're used to things that are tabular databases, or you might be familiar with like a document store or even a time series database. In a graph database, what we have is we have nodes and relationships. So we have entities. So you can, like some people say, it's like the nodes are the nouns and the relationships between them are the relationships. So for example, I have a car and I am a human. So I have a human who has a car, and the relationship between us is owner, right? You are my roommate who borrows the car. So we both have a relationship to the car. We have a roommate relationship between us. And so it just expands from there. And so for me, like a lot of what we're working on these days is around graph RAG. So when you're doing retrieval-augmented generation, it's basically set on the vector and on the vector similarity. But oftentimes what we find is that the semantic answer is missing some sort of contextual piece that's not semantic. It may be a structural. So for example, one of our examples, we have SEC filings. So that SEC filing has a chunk and it has a vector, and that's connected to the company. That company is owned, their stocks are owned by different asset managers. And so if I ask the vector database a question about the asset managers, it's not going to give me any information because all I have is the vector of these filings. So with graph RAG, what I can do is I can say, tell me which asset managers are most impacted by a lithium shortage. It can go into those documents and based on the vector, find where that lithium impact is, but then use the structural aspect to trace all the way back and say, oh, this is the aggregate. So what it allows you to do is it allows you to leverage not just the semantics of what's in your vector database, but really bring in the structured data of what you have in your system so that you can, because let me tell you this, LLMs are very bad at math, and they don't do it very well because they don't have access to it. And so this way you have the combination of the structured data and the unstructured data in your answers.
I mean, structured data in LLMs is indeed a problem.
Yeah.
And what are the challenges within the RAG-based LLM space that you believe will remain unsolved within the next 2 to 3 years?
Oh, that's a really good one. I mean, I think the biggest challenge that I see people having is understanding what is the appropriate data set to be using. And the biggest challenge that we're seeing, or that I'm seeing, is around the security of RAG. So when a lot of times you've got things in the vector database and people say, oh, it's just a vector, it's not information. You can do an inversion and take that embedding and turn it back into information. So it's really about, I think, where people need to focus is on what is in that RAG data set and what is the governance of what's in that RAG data set to make sure that the way that the application is being built, you're really managing your internal data governance.
Any bets you have for the future?
Oh my gosh, so many bets. I think the most interesting conversation I was having today was with someone about when the agents to agents start talking. So I'm working directly with some people who are working in that space, and I'm really curious to see what comes of that. But the thing that I want to see the most in LLMs is I want to see ethical sourcing in the training data of the large language models, right? I mean, so much of it is built on Common Crawl. And, even when I was studying data science, we're like, oh, here's Common Crawl or here's this open data set. But just because we have access to it doesn't mean we have authority over it. And I really want us as an industry to really think about what are the raw materials of this LLM-based industry, and how do we make sure that the value that's being generated gets passed back to the owners of those raw materials. Because, LLMs are all about patterns, but patterns only exist with data points. And those data points are pieces that were written by humans. And so it seems to me that value, somehow there should be a connection. And I think as an industry, we need to really focus on ethical sourcing of the training data for our LLMs.
You're bringing out some amazing pain points here. All right, thank you so much. If there's anything else you'd like to share with our viewers, this is the chance.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd want to share is we actually have something called the Knowledge Graph Builder. So definitely come to Neo4j, look for the Graph Builder. What it's going to allow you to do is take your unstructured data, whether it's YouTube transcripts, Wikipedia pages, PDFs, and it'll actually auto-generate the knowledge graph for you. Obviously, it'll enable you to do a chatbot, but more than anything, it's going to give you an idea of what is the structure and what are the ideas in the data that you have. So that's super fun. The other thing too is if you're ever curious about Graph, I'm very easy to find on LinkedIn. I like to keep my calendar open, so don't be shy. If you want to know more about it, just reach out.